The Long Road to True Happiness by WierdRandomTina. Chapter 32. A Very Special Gift. Troll Village wouldn't be Troll Village if its hundreds of upbeat and colourful citizens didn't celebrate literally everything. From important milestones such as a troll teen's graduation or a couple's wedding anniversary, to smaller victories like a trolling losing their first tooth or a troll starting a new hobby, all the way down to the first day of a new month or a double rainbow sighting. You name it, they celebrated it. And not just some basic celebration. Oh no. There was no such thing as a small or quick celebration. It was all or nothing, and nothing was not an option for trolls. Constant loud music with singing and dancing, all-you-can-eat buffets, fancy lights and decorations, piles of gifts with giant bows and elaborate wrapping, dozens of fun games, bags of glitter and or confetti, massive bunches of colourful balloons, and at least one huge layered cake with swirled icing, beautiful designs, rainbow sprinkles, complete with an uplifting written message. So one could only imagine the extravagant positive consequences of a birthday party. A troll's birthday was considered extremely important, a wonderful milestone in their life. Plus, it's the one day a year that a grand celebration was dedicated solely to them. There were two reasons a birthday could be even more exceptional. They've reached an age milestone, or they're a member of the royal family. All those reasons were why the entire village had been busier than a hive of bees over the last week. Even toddler trollings and retired elders were pitching in, meticulously and fanatically planning out the ultimate of ultimate birthdays for their beloved Pink Princess's upcoming 22nd Bee Day. One troll in particular was putting in an unusually extreme amount of effort. Not because he was making glittery decorations or baking a towering cake or organising complex games, but because this troll had never put any effort into any celebration, let alone a special birthday for a very special someone. He wasn't mingling with the trolls in the heart of the village. Instead, he was underground in his bunker, creating an extensive vision board to figure out the perfect gift. But even after 5 full days of brainstorming, Branch still couldn't invent so much as a half-decent gift idea. Everything that came to mind was either wouldn't be any use to her, she already had tons of, he wouldn't know what was suitable, such as specific scrapbooking supplies, try saying that 5 times fast, or he simply couldn't make it a reality. He considered making her another deluxe banana cream pie, or attempting some other baked dish, but that seemed so bland. Poppy deserved much more than a simple dessert for some recipe book that anyone else could make for her. He could write her another poem, but that seemed too repetitive. He could try to scrapbook something for her, but he still wasn't fully confident with his crafting skills. Branch knew how much she adored her collection of plushies, so he could find an extra cute one for her, but, again, that was something anyone could purchase for her. So his next step was to make her a one-of-a-kind plushie. But after a dozen different attempts over the course of another 2 days, he admitted defeat. He had plenty of experience with sewing, but his skills were meant for practicality, not attractiveness. Each handmade plushie, no matter how hard he tried or what methods he used, ended up looking like some kind of roadkill. What can I do for Poppy that no one else has done? What can I give her that's special? As special as she is. No matter what I choose, it'll look meagre in comparison to all the hundreds of elaborate gifts she'll receive tomorrow. Branch shook his head, trying to banish the pessimistic thoughts. I'll think of something. After all, I still have... He glanced over at his clock, which did little to reduce his pessimism. Another 6 hours. Or longer, if I stay up late. Almost 6 hours later, Branch was still staring at the vision board. but he'd developed a nasty headache, so that gaze was now listless. He had been so hyper-focused on the same ideas for so long, all the notes and drawings were blurring together. So he decided the best course of action, given his current predicament, was to take a break and return to his task with a clear mind. After a herbal medication for the head pain, a sunflower seed snack and a large tea, Branch rested on the couch, with his head against the armrest. He closed his eyes, tapping his thumbs together. This approach isn't working. I need to think outside of the box. Ironically, his next step was to look inside a box. A small crate, to be exact, filled with his oldest belongings. It was located in his secondary storage room, in the furthest corner of his bunker. Branch was hoping that something in there from his much happier childhood would spark some inspiration. There was his kindergarten class photo, his family photo album. He stared at the cover for a minute, but set it aside without opening it. A cute baby photo of Poppy. He forgot he had that. Every family received one when the Pink Princess was born. Some random sentimental items that belonged to his late relatives. Mugs, small decor, etc. A sack of old toys. A very ripped turtle plushie. A smaller, gently used rabbit plushie. An out-deflated beach ball. A tangled green slinky. A party hat decorated with felt branches and leaves. Half a bag of marbles, 2 unopened bags of craft supplies, a blue jump rope, 3 fairy tale books, most from his grandma and some from his parents, plus a few items he kept from his adoptive families. Cute, sentimental, nice reminiscing material, but not helpful as an inspiration for Poppy's gift. After moving aside some unfinished colouring books, Branch discovered one final thing at the bottom of the crate, amongst some old holiday decorations. A small purple container, aged but in decent condition, with a tiny faded white logo in the right top corner. This looks very familiar. What is... Halfway through the thought, and the answer hit him like a lightning bolt to the chest. As quick as lightning, Branch opened the box. Even though it was the object he'd expected to see, the sight of it gave him another jolt, and threw him into a whirlwind of memories. His heart ached with sorrow and melted with love all at once. He wasn't sure which of those emotions was causing the tears to form. For over half an hour, Branch knelt there on the floor, unable to pull his eyes away from the bittersweet item in his hands. By then, his heart had settled, and his thoughts gradually began to process again. His legs had fully fallen asleep, so he had to stretch them out before carefully standing up. He then returned the belongings to the crate. Most of them. 2 items remained, 1 in each hand. The family photo album and the little purple box, aka the inspiration he was hoping to find. It was more than inspiration. At last, Branch had a definite and appropriate idea for Poppy's birthday gift. He held the small box against his chest, closed his eyes, and smiled. He could feel it in his gut. Yes, this will be perfect. That night, Branch fell asleep quickly. Almost instantly, maybe 3 or 4 minutes after shutting off his lamp. He used to dread night time. No matter how exhausted he was, he would toss and turn for hours. Then, when he was finally able to drift off, it would usually be a restless sleep plagued with awful dreams. Or he'd jolt awake in the middle of the night, being unable to shut his eyes again. But that was no longer the case. 1 bad dream per week on average, and he'd only experienced 3 nightmares in the last month, including the anniversary night. He was able to recover from those much faster now, without a full-blown panic attack, and eventually relaxing enough to fall back asleep. Branch had been certain that this would be the night he had another nightmare, or at least an unsettling dream. After all, he'd spent most of the evening looking through his family photo album. Yet he woke up well past dawn, fully rested. The entire book, every single picture, some of his mother and father, and a couple of other random relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles maybe. But the majority of the photos were of the only family member he had ever known, his beloved guardian, Grandma Rosie Puff. Some when she was middle-aged, some of her with his parents and others, some nice and some more recent portraits of her, many of her and Branch happily together, celebrating his birthday or other special days, making a colourful mess with crafts, working on puzzles, playing board games, relaxing outside on nice summer days. Both of them were always smiling and laughing, standing or sitting close together, often with her arm wrapped lovingly around him. He actually managed to look at all of these. Sure, he had to set it aside for a few minutes halfway through. Sure, his heart was pounding, his hands were trembling, and he was crying the whole time. But that was a huge improvement from breaking down simply by glancing at the cover. He hadn't touched this photo album since he shoved it into the crate, way back when he began the construction of his bunker. Before that, during his preteen trolling years, Branch had attempted to look at it a few times. He could get as far as holding the book for about 5 seconds, but could never bear to open it. He missed his grandma so much, and he yearned to see a glimpse of her again. But his guilt and depression made it too painful. Even to this day, 2 decades later, Branch still suffers from his traumatic past. But now that he was receiving and accepting proper support, he was learning how to cope with it. With more general positivity inside him, he was able to mentally handle the emotional memories. Now that he had gained enough courage to take this step, it was a relief to finally see all those photos again. And despite shedding tears while reviewing the album, his lips had been turned upward in a fond smile. Not only has the number of nightmares decreased, but pleasant dreams were becoming more common. Even after dedicating an entire evening to recalling detailed memories of Grandma Rosie Puff, Branch dreamed of something positive. He was at an amusement park with Poppy, riding a Ferris wheel that was high enough to reach into the clouds. The pair continued to lift higher into the sky until the two of them peacefully floating in the air, facing each other with intertwined hands and matching tender smiles. And then he wordlessly initiated a slow dance with her, a peaceful slow dance above the clouds. Branch shared a dance with Poppy. It felt so strange to dance, even in a dream. The dream was based off real events from the previous day. Branch did, in fact, visit an amusement park with Poppy and with the snack pack. Although, near the end, their friends discreetly ditched them so the pair could hang out alone. During that time, Branch and Poppy rode the grand Ferris wheel. Not quite high enough above the clouds, but it was still an extreme height. Despite the spectacular view beyond the windows, their primary focus remained on each other. Whereas before, Branch used to shy away from extended eye contact, he could now gaze endlessly into her gorgeous fuchsia eyes. Obviously, the gang suspected that something was going on between their newest friend and their princess, but it didn't make Branch nervous. Not in the slightest. He wasn't concerned about what they may think of him, them together. He wasn't embarrassed to stand or sit close to Poppy. He wasn't afraid of others seeing him with her. Even when he truly stopped to ponder over the negative possibilities, completely unaffected. As for the dancing part of the dream, Poppy had danced on her own, after being invited to perform on the karaoke stage. But Branch didn't join her. It was normal for him to avoid the spotlight. It was normal for him to never dance. So Poppy didn't ask him to join her, and the snack pack didn't pressure him to join in. He doesn't dance, ever, so they would all assume he'd say no anyway. Poppy walked slowly through the crowd, trying to absorb every bit of the magnificent party. The party in her honour. Every year was the same. The entire village would band together to create a massive autumn-themed celebration for her, since her birthday was 2 days after the first day of autumn. Yet each party was unique. Similar concepts and activities with different ideas and details. For example, a playlist of her favourite songs would play constantly in the background, but the list would change slightly every year, adding new faves and subtracting some less popular ones. Last year the dishware sets were tie-dyed orange. This year they contained intricate vine designs with no two alike. For her 18th birthday, the plates and mugs were shaped like pumpkins and gourds with utensils that looked like twigs. King Peppy always oversaw organising and executing the party. Normally he was quite laid back, a roll with the punches kind of troll. But when it involved his beloved daughter's birthday, he was extremely strict and particular. Poppy insisted a few times he didn't need to stress out about it so much, but he would respond with a simple and stubborn, "Oh, yes I do." Of course, her best friends always played a huge role in the preparation. Each one would take charge of a different category, each year. Table decorations, hanging decorations, lunch, dinner, desserts, games, etc. Of course, DJ Suki was always in charge of the music, and this year she was accompanied by her niece, CJ. But Poppy always anticipated a gigantic party. But exactly how it would play out each year was always a wonderful surprise. The entire centre of the village and beyond was decked out in orange with hints of yellow, splashes of red, and bits of soft brown. Pumpkins of every shape and size were scattered everywhere, as table centerpieces lining up along the edges of the paths, even hanging in some trees. Pine cones, sunflowers, gourds and acorns also centred in the main locations, along with bunches of balloons, cute wreaths made by the trollings, and soft yellow-orange lights strung overhead. One enormous "Happy 22nd!" banner hung along above her pod. Its basic layout was organised by this year's decorator, Biggie, and constructed by the village as a whole, each member pitching in to add something to its elaborate design. Poppy was used to being the hostess of a party, or at least an assistant. She was used to going all out for others. It was more than just her job. It was her life. So the generous princess had a tough time letting others do the same for her. Half the time she would try to work at her own birthday party. So, as of exactly 7 years ago, a rule was put in place that she was forbidden to help in any way, filling the punch bowls, fixing fallen decorations, cleaning up the wrapping paper, etc. But for Poppy that was a lot harder than it sounded. But so far she had managed to behave. She even walked past a group of trolls who were repairing a knocked-over centerpiece without offering to do it for them. She continued to admire all the beautiful decorations and delicious-looking food and startling mountain of presents. Wow! I know I say this every year, but seriously, this is the most magnificent party ever! How did they manage to pull all this off? I don't think they started planning it any more than a week ago. As if the spectacular party wasn't enough, Branch had even agreed to make an appearance. He most likely wouldn't stay for the entire party, just bits and pieces of it, but that was totally fine. As long as Poppy gets to see him, even just for a few minutes, long enough to give him a hug and see his handsome smile, that was plenty. The fact that he was willing to show up to a village-wide party, just for her, it was... She couldn't even express how happy that made her. Heck, I can't think of a single thing that could make this party better. Princess Poppy greeted every troll she passed at the party. Even one of those trolls complimented her new outfit. An orange dress with mahogany maple leaves along the bottom, with a few smaller stray ones sneaking up the front and to the right, and a little acorn button accenting the left shoulder strap. Her brown headband had 5 maple leaves instead of 3 flowers, from right to left. The leaves went large to small and dark orange to yellow. Her hair tie was fuzzy and light brown, and she wore an anklet on her left with a little orange leaf charm, an early present from Lexi. In addition, she had a dark orange eyeshadow and an orange temporary hug time bracelet. After DJ Suki approached Poppy to talk about the new and improved stereo system, the princess realized something. "Oh, my hair! I never asked how it went with your plumbing system. Did it get fixed? I'm so sorry, I totally forgot to check up on that." "Oh, don't worry about it, Pops. You were busy with tons of other much more important things. I wouldn't expect something like that to be on the top of your to-do list. Besides, everything's good with it now, thanks to Branch." Poppy raised an eyebrow. "Branch? Yeah, he's the one who fixed it. All the other workers were busy that day, but it was getting real bad real fast. So I went over to Branch's to see if maybe he could help. Dude fixed the whole thing in like 20 minutes. Haven't had another problem with it since." Poppy was smiling warmly. That was the 3rd incident she'd learned of. The first was when she overheard Aspen, Tug, and some of their friends discussing the most recent volleyball tournament, and they'd mentioned about Branch joining in when Bella had left the game. Then, when Poppy was reviewing the repaired playground, she glanced at the silver plaque containing the workers' names, and was surprised to see Branch's name at the top of the builders list. "He's interacting with the village way more than I thought." Poppy's heart swelled with pride. "It took him so long to fully be comfortable around me. Then he eventually adjusted to the pack, and now he's helping random people and hanging out all over the place, and without me being there." She remembered how Branch used to stick right by her side in unfamiliar social settings, nervous to even make eye contact with another troll. It looks like he's confident enough to make new friends and try new activities on his own now. I really hope he can see how far he's come. Everyone else sure can. After greeting the majority of the guests, Poppy regrouped near her pod with the snack pack, plus Milton, Lexi, and Fuzzbert, all dressed up in autumn colours with their usual style. The 11 trolls were chatting casually. Eventually, Poppy began describing her greatest birthday memories, when suddenly Biggie's blue gaze shifted to something behind her, and his mouth opened in shock. One by one, all her friends followed suit. Saturn and Chenille smiled like they'd won the lottery. Milton looked quite impressed, and Smidge's glass of fruit punch slipped out of her hand and fell to the grass without her or anyone else flinching. All of them were staring behind Poppy, with a strong expression of pleasant surprise. Curious, the magenta troll turned around, expecting to see some towering cake being brought out, or an extra fancy decoration being installed. But what she saw made her heart leap out of her chest, her knees nearly buckle, and her jaw drop. It was Branch! He was approaching them, seemingly moving toward her in slow motion. But it wasn't only his casual stroll through the middle of the noisy and dense crowd that left a stunned Poppy. An orange leaf vest, with a little acorn on the left side, long mahogany trousers, with orange and yellow large to small maple leaves snaking up the legs. One of the outfits from Satin and Chenille's fashion scrapbook. He was wearing that outfit! Nobody spoke a single word as Branch came to stand in front of Poppy. Her eyes were locked onto him. Not only was he wearing a nice new outfit, but he looked... Nope. Formulating words was not a possibility for Poppy at that moment. She had forgotten how to move. She had forgotten how to breathe. She just stood there, smitten, staring unblinkingly at him and stammering incoherencies as if her brain had turned into fluff. A tiny part of her mind that was still functioning made her worry that her awkward hesitation would stir up his insecurities. But there were no worry lines on Branch's face. No frown, no lowered ears, no uncertainty in his eyes, no tenseness in his shoulders. Instead, his response to her dumb rambling was a smirk. And his words came out very clearly, with a light teasing tone even. "Hello to you too, Poppy." It was DJ Suki who answered him. "And hello to you, dude." Everyone gathered around him, speaking over each other with positive comments. "Hey, Branch! Wow, look at you! Awesome! Cool! Welcome to the party, Branch! Nice outfit! You look great, Branch! Yeah, it really suits you!" He shied away a bit. "Thanks, guys. I thought it was time to try something a bit different." Vicky asked excitedly, "So, what do you think of the party so far?" Branch peered around, still looking very relaxed. "Loud, crowded, colourful." He shrugged. "Not so bad." Poppy was the only one who hadn't said a single word. Even as her friends continued to talk with Branch, she just stood there like one of the decorations. Forget what she said before about how nothing could make this day better. Eventually, Branch turned his attention back to her, the slight smirk reappearing when he saw that she was still gawking at him. "Happy 22nd, Princess Poppy," he said respectfully. She found her voice, but not very effectively. Yeah, thank you, yes, thanks, happy birthday to me." Branch wasn't the only troll smirking at her now. It was a miracle none of them commented on her love-struck behaviour. When the gang's conversation revolved around Branch resumed, Chenille did lean toward Poppy and whispered smugly, "You're welcome." Later, Branch started chatting with a random group nearby, who were clearly also commenting on his outfit and appearance at the big party. So Poppy took the opportunity to approach the twins. "Girls, I could hug the two of you forever and ever. I am so glad you decided to make that outfit for Branch. It was one of my absolute faves." Satin grinned and crossed her arms. "We know. You only told us about 10 times how much you absolutely loved that outfit." Chenille grinned and placed her hands on her hips. "And I think you've already expressed how glad you are to see him wearing it." Poppy started to blush, then shook her head to banish the mild embarrassment creeping in. Okay. Yeah, point taken. But I can't help it. It suits him so well. And that little acorn you added. Too cute. Okay, seriously though, I just have to know. How in the tangled hair did you convince him to wear it? Satin and Chenille exchanged identical blank stares. The pink twin shook her head and said, "We didn't." The blue twin clarified, "He asked us to make it for him." Did Poppy just hear that correctly? Branch asked you to make him that outfit? For real? "Yeah, he stopped by our pod earlier in the week," Satin answered. Chenille began. "There was a knock on our door. We assumed it was Gia Grooves checking up on the progress for her dress again. But when I opened the door, there was Branch." Satin picked up the story. "He was kind of shy about it, but he said he was hoping that Chenille and I could make him an autumn outfit for your birthday party, provided we could fit it into our schedule." "Of course we could fit him into our schedule," Chenille exclaimed. "We've never had the opportunity to make something for Branch, so we were willing to make spare time for him. He asked to review our fashion scrapbook, and that's the one he picked." "Branch came to you asking for a new outfit." Poppy repeated it aloud, hoping it would sink in. She was surprised, and yet not. Back when they were working on their scrapbooks outside his bunker, he hadn't seemed overly enthusiastic at the idea of a wardrobe change, especially something with splashes of warm colour. Then again, that was many weeks ago. Sometimes it seems like yesterday that Branch did anything to avoid the village. Other times, I forget that he was even considered an outcast. The sisters simultaneously interrupted Poppy's thoughts. He certainly did. Satin's grin grew wider, and she gestured towards the princess's own clothing. Why do you think we were insisting you wear this today? Chenille explained. After we made Branch's outfit, which he asked us to keep secret, BTW, we decided to toss out our original idea for your birthday outfit. Both girls finished the thought, and create this one especially instead. Poppy's earlier dreamy days had been so fixated on how handsome Branch looked that she hadn't even realised how similar his outfit's design was to her. Now she wanted to squeal. Holy sprinkles, me and Branch are wearing matching clothes! Meanwhile, as the half-dozen trolls he was talking to dispersed, Branch glanced over at Poppy, who was excitedly talking to the fashion twins. He smiled as he glanced down at his unfamiliar clothes. There was no way this was a coincidence. Satin and Chenille do not make mistakes when it comes to fashion. Poppy and I are wearing matching outfits. Yeah, if our relationship was a secret before, I doubt it will be for much longer. Poppy's 22nd birthday celebration was hours upon hours of non-stop exciting activities. All day to be exact, mid-morning until very late in the evening. Branch would participate, partially or fully, in one or two activities, then sit out for one or two activities. Every few hours he'd take a break from the party, and take a short solo walk away from the party. During 2 of those breaks, Branch did accept some company. One was Milton, who wanted to check on his critters, and take a small break of his own. The second was King Peppy, who needed a break, but didn't want to take one. I can go for another hour or 2 at least, he stubbornly insisted. Poppy was gently arguing with him. Don't you remember what happened last time you said that? 10 minutes later you fell asleep in the middle of the snack buffet, and you were so out cold that no one could wake you for 3 hours. Peppy scrunched up his face, clearly remembering it, but was too proud to admit it. Poppy put her arms around his stout orange figure. I know you hate leaving in the middle of a party, especially when it's my birthday party. But it's okay, Dad. You've already done a ton of fun stuff with me today. I don't want you to work yourself to death just for me. And you're not the only troll who takes breaks, you know. Branch overheard the conversation, considering he was standing only a few troll lengths away. He moved closer and said tactfully, Pardon me for interrupting, but speaking of breaks, I was just about to take one myself. Would you care to come with me, King Peppy? I could use some company. His amber eyes lit up at the offer. Oh, well, if you're looking for a companion, I suppose I could do that for you. Poppy smiled gratefully at Branch. He gave her a quick wink in return, then he and King strolled off. She heard her dad saying, I'm now too old for all this partying. But believe me, back in my day, I used to be the life of every party. I once hosted a seasonal festival for 4 days straight. Didn't take so much as a nap. Peppy's story trailed off as he and Branch disappeared into the forest. As Branch returned to the party, alone, King Peppy having finally decided that taking a nap sounded like an effective plan, the scarecrow making contest began. Branch and Poppy automatically partnered up. They came up with a design plan that consisted of ideas from both. For the building part, Branch took charge and Poppy assisted him. For the decorating, Poppy took charge and Branch assisted her. They made the most of their individual strengths, and were interested to learn from the other. They worked so well together that their sturdy and creative scarecrow made it into the top 3, along with Baja's pirate scarecrow and a highly detailed miniature from Guy and Gia. After receiving their awards, Poppy hung out with her dad at his pod for the next hour, while Branch grabbed another plateful of snacks and chatted with Tug for a bit. Soon another dance began, and Tug grew even more ecstatic. Fun fact, this is my most favourite song of all time. I can't wait to move my feet and put my hair in the air. The lively orange troll turned up her purple eyes to Branch. He expected her to encourage him to join in. Instead, she just smiled widely at him and said, Enjoy the rest of your snacks, Branch. It's been extremely great to see you at a party. Have a terrific rest of the day. Branch watched as Tug danced her way in the crowd, listening to the music's volume increased. At no point did he join in, though he didn't leave the area either. He watched the others happily dance, all the while thinking of Poppy. It could be difficult to keep track of hundreds of trolls, but there was one face Poppy had definitely not seen all day. Creek. Not even a glimpse of his blue-green hair. So either he happened to be wherever she wasn't, he was doing an excellent job of keeping out of her sight, or he hadn't shown up at all. There had been a handful of anonymous gifts, so maybe one of them had been from him. Then again, none of them would seem to be his style, or something he gave to her. Poppy had to admit, Creek's absence kind of irked her. Regardless of what happened in the past, it was pretty cold-hearted to purposefully not attend an old friend's milestone birthday celebration. She was planning to make an appearance at his next birthday party. But, as always, there was one thing that lifted Poppy's spirits and melted away all her worries. Branch's handsome smile. Even catching a glimpse of it, at a distance, when it wasn't directed at her, was enough to set off fireworks in her heart. His sweet little genuine smile used to be a very rare sight. Now it had become a normal expression. However, that did not make it any less special to her. Branch was standing under a rocky overhang, away from the main crowd, chatting with two trolls. One with dark magenta skin and wild yellow hair, wearing a hoodie and long pants. Another with orange skin and pale green hair, accented with twigs and leaves, and wearing a yellow top and skirt. A.k.a. the actor Dennis and the cheery survivalist Karma. Poppy then realised she didn't formally greet those two. Dennis had been fashionably late, as usual, and Karma tended to hang around the outskirts of the action. The princess didn't want to interrupt their conversation, but she really wanted to talk to them before they decided to leave. As Dennis and Karma started a friendly debate, Branch caught a glimpse of vibrant magenta hair out of the corner of his eye. He turned his head to find Princess Poppy skipping towards him, a giant smile on her pretty face as her cute fluffy ponytail swayed from side to side. As always, the sight of her melted his heart. The most extraordinary girl in the world, and he's the one she wants to be with. The most important troll in his life, the very reason he has a life. She believes that they're perfect for each other, and that they can have a bright future together, that he's worthy of her love, that she's made him believe all that too. The last few months have felt like an extended dream for Branch. Some mornings he still wakes up thinking he's back to being glum and lonely reality. But then he thinks of that familiar, warm peacefulness in his heart, which was never there before. He sees all the little gifts Poppy's given him on his round auburn desk, and on the floor around it since he's run out of room. The photo of him and Poppy besides the hug time bracelet box on his nightstand. When he wakes, when he walks into the village, he feels comfortable. When trolls speak to him, he actually speaks back. But the biggest reminder was when Poppy would hug him, when her arms so lovingly around him. Branch knew for certain that this was his new reality. How the hell did I ever get so lucky? As Poppy enthusiastically greeted Dennis and Karma, Branch couldn't help but gaze softly at her. There was a 99% chance that his face looked extremely doggy in that moment, but he didn't really care. More than likely, someone in the vicinity had seen his dreamy stare directed at Princess Poppy. Oh well, what the hair? Orange really suits her. She looks so beautiful. I should really tell her that. After Dennis departed for the night, apparently he had some errand to run, and Karma wandered over to the now less crowded snack tables, Branch turned to Poppy, but before he could attempt to say any type of compliment, part of the snack pack wandered over. Biggie, DJ Suki, Satin, Chenille, and Guy. Biggie was holding a camera. Poppy! We still need to get our annual photo in front of the 8-layered cake before dessert time begins, which is less than 10 minutes. Already? Holy cupcakes, this day went by fast. Are Lexi, Milton and Fuzzbert joining in? Not Fuzzbert, Suki said apologetically. He went home early. Dude won that pie eating contest, but he's suffering from it now. Smidge went to get Milton, Chenille told Poppy. They'll meet us there. They actually wandered away from each other for a few minutes, Saturn added teasingly. And Cooper's... Oh, there he comes now, Guy began until the long-necked, four-legged pink troll appeared around the corner. What about my dad? He's already waiting by the cake, Biggie assured her. Perfect, then let's go. The gang started to walk in the direction of their photo place. Poppy paused after only a single step, glancing at the only troll who hadn't moved. Branch, do you, want to come with us? The rest of the gang had paused now too, glancing back at that unassuming Rand. They were all staring so hopefully at him, to the point where their expressions were almost amusing. Branch glanced back at Poppy. Her eyes held that familiar, pleading gleam, strong enough to try to encourage him, but soft enough to assure him that he was not being pressured. Sure, I'll join in. Poppy danced the entire way to the photo location, elated that Branch agreed to be included in her traditional birthday photo. Branch couldn't stop smiling as he watched her skipping and twirling and bouncing around. Silly, adorable, sweet, crazy, wonderful, beautiful Poppy. And she was exceptionally happy right now because of him. He hadn't hurt her feelings, or annoyed her, or disappointed her. He'd made her happy. He was willing and able to do that now. And seeing Poppy happy makes me happy. For a second, Branch's smile faded as he blinked, astounded. Did I just say that? That I'm happy? It was an automatic but cliché phrase to say at that moment. But maybe it was kind of true. Before Poppy or anyone else noticed his absence, his smile returned. Yeah, I still feel fear and sadness from time to time. The occasional thing still irritates me, and many things still make me anxious or embarrassed. But in general, I do feel more positive than negative. I feel more positive than negative. Wow. The gang lined up in front of the towering birthday cake, with their birthday princess in the centre. Biggie handed the camera to the nearest bystander, who happened to be the florist, Meadows Spriggs. Then the tall blue troll headed to the back, fiddling with Mr. Dinkles' little black hat until it was perfectly straight. To Poppy's left, the twins struck a rehearsed pose, while Smidge and Milton to her right stood with their arms around each other and their hair entwined. With almost all the trolls ready to go, the final two joined. King Peppy, who squeezed in beside Guy to put his arm around his daughter, and Branch, who settled on her opposite side, right beside her. As if his nearness wasn't enough, she suddenly felt his fingers gently interlacing with hers. Instinctively she looked down, and sure enough, dainty pink and pale turquoise were connected, like perfect puzzle pieces. At that moment, Meadow lifted the camera. All right, everyone, let's see your biggest, brightest smiles ever. On 3. Poppy's gaze moved up to Branch's face. His head was held high, and even from the side she could tell that he was preparing to smile. 1. Thankfully, a smile was required in this situation, because nothing could have stopped hers from forming. 2. Giving Branch's hand a little extra squeeze, Poppy faced the camera. 3. Before the photo even printed out, everyone had gathered around Meadow to look at it. Only generous Poppy and unassertive Branch hung back, neither wanting to butt in front of the other friends or King Peppy. But the princess was growing more impatient by the second, especially as positive comments about Branch's appearance began flying all over the place. He ducked his head shyly in response. The compliments were great to hear, but Poppy really wanted to see for herself. She already knew Branch looked great, but she wanted to know exactly how great. Finally, the crowd backed away so the final two could view the photo. Poppy practically sprang forward while Branch approached at a slower pace. Meadow turned the photo around for them, and the result was, as Smidge would say, "Oh my god." How did Branch's smile get even more handsome? Were his colours always this noticeable? The lighting seemed to emphasize the blue-green tint of his skin and the boldness of his very deep blue-black hair. Poppy glanced at him as he came to stand beside her, and he smiled as he studied the photo of himself with her. Nope, it's not just the lighting. Wow, he certainly isn't Grey Branch anymore. Only once the sun began to set did the enormous party begin to die down. Some trolls hung around the area, while others went home. But Poppy's band of 11 friends joined her in her pod. It was a little tradition for her to have a mini after-party with her BFFs, a calmer get-together where they could tell jokes, have a pillow fight. Smidge and Branch nearly ended up annihilating each other and the pillows, snacks on the leftover dessert, and lastly, give their birthday girl extra special gifts, without the excess crowd surrounding them. They gathered in a tight circle, with Poppy in the middle, seated on a fuzzy pink pillow. Just like the layout of the campouts, they took turns by going around the circle. While debating on who would begin, Biggie, Guy Diamond, and DJ Suki suggested that Branch be the one to go first, since this was the first time he's ever attended this party. But Branch politely declined. "Actually, I'd prefer to go last, if that's all right." Some slightly curious glances were exchanged among the others, but no one objected. Poppy answered for the group. "Sure, Branch, whatever you'd like. Milton, you mind going first? That way we can go around the circle clockwise to end with Branch." The mauve veterinarian nodded, before shifting into the middle of the circle and presenting Poppy with a colourful square box that he pulled from his pale orange hair. Branch waited patiently for his turn. After Milton was Smidge, then Guy, Biggie, Cooper, Legsy. Branch noticed his heart had started to beat a bit faster, though it was more in anticipation than nervousness. Suki, Satin, Chenille. Just Fozbert and I'm up next. Branch's heart rate continued to accelerate. "Oh, thank you so much, Fozbert. This is the cutest crafting kit I've ever seen." Poppy hugged the green-tufted little troll. He moved back to his spot in the circle. Poppy took another look at her new craft kit, before setting it aside with the other opened gifts. Then the happy pink princess turned her attention to the final guest. "All righty, Branch. Looks like we've come to your turn now." "So we have." Branch took a deep breath. He half stood up to move into the circle a bit, as all the others had. But before he could fully sit back down, Poppy reached out her magenta hair and used it to yank him closer to her. He chuckled as he ended up right beside her, and settled contentedly into that new spot, despite the friendly smirks openly coming from Milton, Suki, Satin, Chenille, and Guy. Poppy sat there, with her hands in her lap, smiling softly at Branch. After taking another deep breath, he reached into his hair to reveal his present for her. The small box was wrapped in mauve paper and tied with a dark blue, thin ribbon. The first words out of his mouth were instinctively, "I apologize for the poor wrapping." As expected, Poppy's chipper response was, "Don't worry about it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's not like it's going to be there for long anyway." He gently handed her the little present, and she added, "It's what's on the inside that counts." Within a few seconds, the plain wrapping paper, accented with far too much tape, with the simple ribbon was discarded, revealing a cute little purple box. Poppy didn't recognize the style of the box, or its faded logo. It must be from several generations ago. "Oh, I wonder what Branch got me." With an excited, toothy smile, Poppy opened the box and gasped. She was so awestruck that her smile completely disappeared. Her fuchsia eyes glowed as she stared at the item in the box. When she made no comment, her friends bombarded her. "What is it? Show us! Let's see it! Girl, you cannot just make a reaction like that and leave us hanging! Oh my gosh, show us!" In slow motion, with her pink freckled face still frozen in awe, Poppy reached for the item. When she finally lifted it out of the box and into view, the others gasped too. Hanging from her hand was a vintage gold necklace with a gorgeous rose charm. Depending on the lighting and the angle, the colour of the rose's petals was always different. In the box it had appeared a reddish pink. Then, as she lifted it out, it had seemed more purple. Now, as she rotated it slightly, it changed again to a bluish green. It was unlike anything she or her friends had ever seen. Once the surrounding chatter over its stunning appearance died down, Poppy spoke slowly and hushedly. "Branch, where did you get this?" Branch answered very softly. "Actually, it belonged to my grandma. It was her favourite necklace. She wore it nearly every day." Everyone in the room, including the 3 newcomers, understood the significance of this gift, and gasped for a second time. Poppy's jaw dropped to the floor, her eyes wide as if she was startled. She stared at the beautiful necklace in her hand for a moment, then carefully placed it back in its box. "Branch, that is so incredibly thoughtful, but I can't take this from you." Poppy started to move the box toward him, but Branch gently pushed her hand back toward her. "You're not taking it. I'm giving it to you. I want you to have it. She'd want you to have it too. It's been buried in an old crate, shoved into the corner of an insignificant storage room. It's about time it had a purpose again." The princess looked incredibly torn between giving it in and respecting his wishes, or continuing to insist he should keep it. But it's so special to you." Branch nodded. "That's true. It is very special." His light blue gaze, now misty-eyed, softened even further. "And that's why I want you to have it. To show you how special you are to me." Poppy's exhale was an emotional sigh. Her eyes instantly watered as a wide smile spread across her face. Branch's expression mirrored hers. He placed his hand over the necklace and gently lifted it out of the box in her hand. Releasing the clasp, he held each end, reaching forward and around her neck to fasten it. It suited Princess Poppy so perfectly, like she was meant to wear it. She closed her eyes as she rested her little pink hand over the beautiful rose. When she looked up at Branch, he was still smiling, despite the lone tear rolling down his cheek. Her own smile trembled as her own tears threatened to overflow. She lunged forward to wrap him up in a long hug of pure love, which he immediately returned with equal affection. The surrounding circle of trolls struggled not to burst out crying at the scene, keeping their sniffles and whimpers to a minimal to avoid interrupting the tender moment. It essentially took the rest of the evening for all the tears to finally settle. Every time they thought the sappiness was over, someone would sniffle and set off a chain reaction. Worse than a yawn. Once emotions were somewhat under control, Poppy decided she should really clean up all the gifts and scattered wrapping paper, so her pals would set up their sleeping bags. Branch had opted to skip the slumber part of the party. Before they arrived at Poppy's pod, he admitted, "Sorry, but I'm rather partied out. No offence, I truly did have a great time, but I'm completely exhausted. I'd like to be alone for the rest of the night." Such a statement used to discourage or confuse Poppy. Or, many months ago, she straight up wouldn't have believed it, and certainly wouldn't have accepted it. Now she understood that Branch needed a balance of socializing and solitude. Not all socializing like she'd thought, and not all solitude like he'd thought. Instead, it was healthier to slowly expand his comfort zone, and take a step back when he felt it was necessary, That's totally fine, Branch. I'm so happy to hear that you had fun. I know it was a pretty big party, but maybe you and I could have another sleepover sometime soon. Branch agreed with zero hesitation. Speaking of Branch, as Poppy and Smidge gathered up the last of the wrapping paper, the princess realised her dearest friend was no longer in the room. A quick check confirmed he was not in the pod at all. So she peeked out from her front window, and there he was, standing outside, a few troll lengths away from her door. His face was tilted upwards, as if he was looking at the stars, but his eyes were fully closed. Poppy opened the door very carefully, but it still let out a tiny squeak. Branch's ear twitched slightly, and he turned around, smiling when his eyes met hers. As she started moving towards him, tiptoeing despite already being spotted, he turned his now half-lidded gaze back up to the sky. Once she was standing beside him, she studied his face for a few seconds, before asking softly, "What's wrong, Branch?" When he faced her again, she nearly gasped. Under the moonlight, his features practically shimmered, especially his eyes. His gaze trailed to the rose necklace for a second or two, before he answered, "Nothing." But this time, Poppy knew he meant it. Nothing was wrong. She could see it in his light blue eyes, eyes that held no trace of darkness or doubt. Satisfied, Poppy looked back up at the sky. She loved how brightly the stars shone tonight. She loved even more how Branch's arm had wrapped around her. She could feel its warmth, its slight weight, its hand lightly resting on her shoulder. Poppy shifted in his grasp so she could wrap both her arms around his sturdy frame, one around his lower back, and the other reaching up so her hand could rest on his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and calm. Meanwhile, back in Poppy's pod, half of the pack was gathered around the little round window. Poppy and Branch were cheek to cheek, arms around each other, just staring up at the stars. The princess's colours were shining as vibrantly as always, but even Branch seemed to have a slight glow to him, far from before, when he would stand in the shadows and be nearly invisible. To avoid possibly alerting them, Biggie kept his excited voice low. "Ooh, looks like Smidge is going to lose the bet." Cooper gasped. "Smidge lost a bet?" But the competitive little troll did not lose her temper. Yeah, whatever. But this is the first bet I've lost in my life, so I still hold the world record. Besides, Smidge suddenly looked like she was stifling a delighted squeal. "I'm glad I was wrong. Cooper was so right before. They really look cute together."
"Then I guess I'm the winner," Suki boasted.
"Not so fast, DJ," Guy objected. "They technically aren't a couple." Suki looked incredulously at the silver glitter troll.
"Dude, are you not seeing the same thing I am?"
Biggie was still staring out of the window with sappy eyes. "Aww, look at them."
"Exactly. Look at them, Guy."
"I see them, Suki. It proves they have strong feelings for each other, but they're still not officially together. It doesn't count if their relationship isn't made public in some way. Have you ever even seen them kiss, or heard them say I love you?" Suki couldn't argue with that, but she still pointed out, "But they've gotten so much closer." "That's true," Guy grinned. "However, it's almost been a month. I can still win this." Unaware of their audience, Poppy snuggled closer to Branch, and he held her tighter. Truthfully, both assumed that some, if not all, their friends were sneaking a peek. But there was no longer that subconscious need to stifle their feelings. After a minute, he whispered to her, "Poppy, I want you to know that you look beautiful tonight." She swore her heart nearly burst through her ribcage. She literally had to catch her breath before responding, "Thank you, Branch. And you look very handsome. Orange really brings out your colours." "Thanks, Poppy." He didn't try to argue. He didn't make a sarcastic remark. And his thanks wasn't sarcastic either. Branch knew her compliments were sincere, and he didn't disagree with her on either one. Poppy's next words were less than a whisper. I love you. Branch's other arm was around her in a heartbeat. His soft whisper was brimming with more emotion than she'd ever heard. I love you too. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that because oh my god, that was so freaking cute! The party, the necklace, the fact that they're still doing half and half of the him interacting but also staying back when he's comfortable, and the freaking I love you at the end. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.